Hey everybody, so for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the film 12 Years a Slave. It's currently nominated for the Academy Awards for Best Picture. It's been getting a lot of buzz, a lot of, really high raved reviews from critics. A lot of people really seem to like the film right now. It's directed by Steve McQueen III, who did the films Shame and Hunger from a few years ago. And 12 Years a Slave, you guys, it actually is based off of a book by the character the film is based on. His name is Solomon Northup, and he was a free man during the 1800s. This happened, during the slavery era. And I think he lived in New York or someplace that didn't have slavery, where he lived at the beginning of the film. And he gets kidnapped through a offer that kind of was very etchy at the beginning. No, Solomon Northup is played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. I apologize if I said his name wrong. But basically, he's this free man, and he lives just like any other white American would at that time period. And he gets scammed into working for this carnival job that supposedly is worth a lot of money. It's worth traveling. These guys tell him that everything that you would want in this job is there, and so they take him out for dinner and everything else. And basically throughout the rest of that night, it gets worse and worse and worse for him, and he doesn't even know it. And it eventually turns to this kidnapping that leads into him being forced into slavery. They take him down to Georgia, I think, somewhere, and they force him to work as a slave with the rest of these African American males and females who are already into slavery already. And so basically, it was a kind of a scam to get another slave into this plantation for the South down somewhere. And this was a real story. It's right at the beginning. This was based off a true story. And basically, throughout the rest of the film, he kind of realizes just how hard slavery is, just how lucky it was that he was a free man near the beginning of the movie. And just like the title suggests, he was basically a slave for 12 years. And he went through everything a slave who would basically had to go through for the rest of their lives, what they had to go through, throughout the course of their lives for what a slave had to do. And he luckily only had to do it for 12, but those 12 years, man, were those very crazy 12 years for this man. You'll see that in this movie. He had to go through a lot of crap and a lot of things that most free men didn't have to worry about that time period that he had to go through during this time that he was kidnapped. So this was, 12 Years a Slave, you guys. I know, like I said, that it's getting praised by critics everywhere. Everybody seems to like it. It's getting tons of nominations right now through the Film Academy for their upcoming Academy Awards. And, um, I thought the film was all right. I think it's a well-made movie. I think it definitely depicts the time period it's trying to depict very well. It definitely shows the brutality and the barbaricness behind slavery. And it felt like a moving film. I mean, you definitely felt dramatic, and the heartwarming scenes feel heartwarming. The sad scenes feel sad. Things of that nature. All that was fine. But I'll get to hear in a few minutes here, some negatives I had about the film that I think kind of drag it down a little bit, and why I'm kind of a little bit questionable why the Film Academy and the critics seem to praise it so much. Um, so for the positives and negatives of this film, you guys, this film very much depicts the 1800s very well. I mean, it looks like the 1800s. There's no modern day technology at all. So they managed to take whatever modern technology was on these real places when they were, making the filming locations, and they really made it look like the 1800s. I mean, the houses, the fields, the barns, even the markets where the slaves had to go into the market and get, stuff for their owners. And it really looked like the 1800s in this film. So whoever did the set designs for this film really did a terrific job with that. Very good acting in this film. I apologize, I really can't say his name. Whoever played Solomon Northup, like I said, I really can't pronounce his name. Whoever played Solomon Northup in the film, he did a very good job. There's a few that are, I have a IMDb page for this film up right now. There was a lot of celebrities in this, a lot of A-list cast members that I thought did a really good job in it. Like we have Paul Giamatti, Benedict Cumberbatch, Paul Dano, and people of that nature were in this film. And I mean, all of them did. Brad Pitt was in the film too. I'll get to him in a second. Just a really terrific A-list cast. They all did a terrific job. The acting was great. As far as acting goes, I mean, I really can't complain about the movie. I mean, it really, on an acting level, it really did very well. The film feels barbaric and brutal when it needs to be. It takes place in the slavery era. It was a brutal era. It was a barbaric era. I think the film very much depicts that element of that time period very well. So the film did a good job with that. Solomon Northup's story, I felt was very tragic. It felt, every time there was a tragic thing going on in the story, I mean, you definitely felt the tragedy of it. So once again, the film does a very good job depicting that tragedy. One thing I really love in this film, I think this is probably one of the things of the film I think that really, really made the film, enjoyable for the most part, was Brad Pitt's brilliant monologues about freedom in the film. Him and Michael Fassbender work really well in the film, and like there's this part where it's really not a spoiler. It's just something that him and Michael Fassbender's character talk about at one point in the movie. How Brad Pitt's kind of telling him how freedom is kind of for everybody. It's meant for everybody. It doesn't matter what race you're born into. It doesn't matter where you are in the world and things of that nature. And he pitched it a lot better than I just did. It's like, in fact, what I did a second ago felt very boring and generic. But the way Brad Pitt presented it, the way he talked about it with Michael Fassbender, I really liked those monologues he had in the film with Michael Fassbender, where he's talking about freedom and human rights and things of that nature. Because to me, that basically summed up what the movie was really about. And I think with a tighter and better script, I think Steve McQueen III would have had a much better film based off Brad Pitt's brilliant monologues alone. In fact, I almost wish that the Film Academy nominated Brad Pitt alone for the movie, for the simple reasons that his monologues in this film are very, very good. And you really liked his character in this film, too. And when you see the film, you know why his character is so likable in the movie. Like I was saying before, it's a well-filmed movie. I mean, the cinematography is very good. Editing's good for the most part. I'll get to a negative here in a second that's kind of conflicts with the editing a little bit, but it's well filmed. It's well lit. It's a well filmed movie. So how they laid it out, how they planned on filming it, all that seemed really good. Some very moving moments in the film, specifically dealing with Solomon's family, and like basically kind of what he left behind and things of that nature. And there was a lot of scenes in this film where you could definitely tell, like when people were taken away from their families and things of that nature. Very, very moving. You've definitely felt with these characters. So I think Steve McQueen III did a very good job with that in this movie. Now on to the negatives. I think overall, guys, I think this is a very, like I said, I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but I think this is a very dull approach on the subject matter. There's a lot of times in this movie where I really didn't feel engaged and involved with what was going on. It just felt like a very by the numbers, very straight from the textbook, from the history textbook kind of movie. I really wish Steve McQueen III would have done something more interesting, kind of like what Quentin Tarantino did for Django Unchained, to make the film really spark and ignite and really do something much more energizing than what came out of the film from what I saw here. I think overall, from what I've seen, is Shame, because I didn't see the whole thing. I didn't see any of Hunger. But I think overall, Steve McQueen III doesn't really have his own style yet, and I think that's really going to hurt him in the end if he doesn't have his own style. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, he has his style. Spielberg has his style. Christopher Nolan has his style. After seeing this film, I really can't decide what kind of direction he wants to go in. I mean, he can either go the barbaric, violent route, kind of like a Quentin Tarantino-esque kind of route, or he could be, the good dramatic director. I don't know. It seems like this film had a little bit of both, and I didn't quite know what Steve McQueen III wants to have his stamp on. I think that's really going to hurt him at the end if he can't decide on which one of those two it's going to be, because based off what I've seen from Shame and what I've seen in this film, I really can't decide or can't really distinguish what Steve McQueen III wants to be. And I think when he decides that, whenever he takes on his next film, I think not only is his filmography going to look more impressive, I think he's just going to live a much happier directing career because of that decision for him. I think some scenes really go on for too long in this. I mean, there's some shots where you literally see Solomon just looking out at something for like 10 minutes. It goes on for way too long, and it happens more than once in the movie. Really bothered me after a while. I really wish I could have walked to the editor and be like, okay, this scene needs to be cut down. We need to cut it down by like 7 minutes because this is going on for way too long. I also felt like this movie felt like it was just made to win Oscars. It just felt like a giant Oscar bait movie. Like Steve McQueen's intention was to only win Oscars. Like it's almost as if like he didn't know what to do for his next film, so he grabbed out a history textbook, found this event and be like, okay, I'm going to make this huge Oscar-winning film. We're going to get all these A-list people together. We're going to have some really dramatic dialogue and things of that nature. It really only felt like he was doing it just to hold that golden trophy. And I really wish that if he really wanted to make a movie about this, really put a lot of time and passion and effort into it. Because I mean, this film really, it felt like he was just trying to win an award off of it. And I think that's a very, not really a selfish thing to do, but it just doesn't feel right. It's just like really, I mean, look at all the good films that came out this year. Like look at like Don John and look at like Enough Said and things of that nature. It's like those directors really had a passion to do that material, and I really didn't feel that passion with this movie. I'm sorry. I apologize for those who really love this movie. I really didn't get a sense of passion. I really felt like he said, I'm going to win that Oscar and I'm going to win it right now. I mean, it just felt like that kind of feeling to me. Like he really wants to hold that gold trophy and really feel good for once. And I don't know. It had that kind of vibe to me. Like that's all the film was going for. Um, the film overall felt too scripted. It really, there's a lot of scenes in this film that really feel like you can tell that these people are reading off of something from a page. And I think if they really want the film to feel real, really make it feel like these people are naturally saying these things, like it's something that I'm telling you right now that comes from my own head and not from something that's written down. Because I think if the film had that feeling, I think it'd be a much better flowing film. Because there was a lot of scenes in here that almost felt like it was something out of a theater production. I really didn't like that vibe with it. Um, Also, I thought the film had some loose structuring. There was a lot of scenes where you're almost questioning, okay, is this happening now? Is it happening in his past? Is it happening when that thing happened? And I understand. And there's actually a lot of good films that where they kind of quickly go through something we've already seen. I think the film almost leaks off of that too much. Like it just didn't feel right when they were trying to repeat certain things. And as you can see, I had a lot of problems with this movie. I think it's a very good movie. Like I said, it has a terrific cast, terrific acting. It really feels like something from the 1800s. It feels barbaric and brutal. It feels tragic. Like I said, I love Brad Pitt's monologues. I love that part of the movie. I think it's well filmed. I think it has very moving moments. But like I said, the structuring and the subject matter just doesn't quite feel right with me. So overall, guys, I give 12 Years a Slave a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, I know that's a little harsh. I know a lot of people love it and are going to hate my rating for that, but I really think this film it does a lot of things not correctly, and I think with a better script and a better approach and a better reasoning behind why Steve McQueen III wanted to make this movie, rather than just saying, okay, well, I want to win an Oscar. That's really not a good excuse for me. Um, like I said, 7.5 out of 10. I think it's an okay film. I think it's a little overpraised. So that's just my thought about it.